Welcome to another episode of Bargain Saturdays, and I suppose it's finally time about Highlander Endgame. And no, I don't know why it's called Endgame, because an endgame is usually used in things like chess and other strategy games to talk about a player pulling off a masterful strategy and how he's now in the final phases of his plan, that the opponent's beaten already and they just don't even realize it, that it's over because they've walked into the trap, and there's no escape from it. They're finished. They're a corpse already, whether they realize it or not. A masterful strategy, a stroke of genius. And it's just like Highlander Endgame, it's not genius. And it's not masterful either. It's painful to behold just how bad it is in some ways. Like, it has to break continuity so much with the film series and the TV series and stuff that basically they just try to throw everything up in the air and start retconning the ever-loving crap out of it just cuz. And it's one thing that always bugs me with the Highlander films is when they start throwing in retcons for no apparent reason. And we're going to have retcons of the retcons in the next film. But yeah, in this film they decided to retcon, the fact that Duncan MacLeod was never going to get married by saying, yeah, he had an immortal wife and did get married at one point. He then violently killed her in her sleep to trigger her immortality because, he's not going to be smart enough to explain his immortality like Connor did in the first film. No, he's going to murder her first. He's like, I need a violent death to trigger it. Like, what, you can't just explain to her and then ask her if she's okay with being violently murdered? Because I imagine a violent death of any kind, whether she knew it was coming or not, would trigger it, right? Or is immortality that fickle? If you know you're going to become immortal after you die, it won't happen because reasons. Like, your death's no less violent, whether, it's coming or not, really, somewhat. So, yeah. It's just a plot point that seems to exist just to have, a scene where Duncan can, basically have I hate you sex with someone later in the film. Because, we gotta have a sex scene in a Highlander film, basically. It's basically almost a law somewhere. Like, if you make a Highlander film, there must be a sex scene somewhere. If not in a flashback, in the present, and usually both. And don't forget to throw in a prostitute for good measure for the villain, if you can get in there somewhere. But yeah, it's one of those things that's in the plot of the film. You're like, why is this a plot point? It didn't need to be a plot point. It breaks continuity with the TV series, as I already mentioned. It's just to drive you crazy with how dumb Duncan had to be to do what he did. And there's continuity errors within the film itself, too, that sometimes catch you off guard. Like, there's a scene where this guy's like, I told you I'd cut you. Yeah, he never said anything about cutting Duncan in any of the previous scenes at the start of the fight. It's just thrown in there and left in there because, it got chopped off in the editing room. They didn't think to edit out the dialogue in that scene or cut away to something else so, didn't have him there at all. Let's just leave it in there. It doesn't make any sense. It breaks continuity. It's an obvious mistake, but we're just going to leave it in because, we're lazy. I suppose you can say that's the same with a lot of the special effects, too. Especially when it comes to the shifting between Duncan and Connor MacLeod in the final battle, because there's a point where, Connor MacLeod's spirit basically takes over Duncan's body, so he starts taking on Connor's physical appearance for short bursts of time, and it's really bad looking. Like, it looks like something a 5-year-old might do in Photoshop, basically trying to shove in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge reference, but yeah, it's pretty painful to behold. And you're like, just why? Make it stop. And Highlander Endgame's main villain, Jacob Kell, just isn't very appealing. He just doesn't have enough presence to really carry himself as a main villain. He's just too underplayed, I suppose, in comparison to the villains we've got in the past, which I suppose does make him different, from the Kurgan and Kane or Katana. But at the same time, he doesn't have a menacing presence about him despite being underplayed. Like, he may not stand out that much, but when he's in the room, there's a sense of dread. And with this one, you're like, I don't care. He's there, but I don't care. It don't matter. Despite the fact, he kills his own minions for not listening to him, or even if they do listen, he'll kill them anyway. And makes dumb puns like, this is what I call decap, with a twist. Like, really? I know that's not really underplayed, but he doesn't oversell it enough to really make the line work anyway. Like, you have to have a certain level of ham, going for stuff like that, and he just doesn't have it. And did the Highlander films really need a decapitation pun anyway? And the main villain's motivation for tormenting, the Highlanders is on the grounds that, Connor killed my dad. My unarmed dad who was about to murder Connor's mom by burning her at the stake for being a heretic. How dare he murder my father for that? Like, are you really that surprised? Um, Jacob Hill's apparent argument is, well, their lives don't mean anything to a man of God being murdered, because he killed off Rachel as well by murdering her with a bomb. Dusty only had time to place a bomb and, Connor McLeod's lost, but apparently he did that. So he's just, going around killing anyone that gets close to Connor. We can assume he's behind Heather's death at some point too, somehow. I don't know. Heck, some of his lines don't even make sense. He talks about how he's going to take away everyone that gets close to Connor, yet he doesn't, take out Duncan at some point in the last, 400 years. He's like, I'll wait to get around to that other Highlander, at some point. It might be Connor's brother-in-law, so I want to make him suffer, but I'll let this relationship last, for several centuries, then jump for his head. Seriously? Why not take his head now? It's just mind-numbing. And then there's the fact you have a scene where, Jacob Kell kills a bunch of other immortals on holy ground, no less, which just completely breaks with continuity in so many ways, because it's basically established by Ramirez in the first film. This is one of their oldest traditions, and no one will break it. Not even the Kurgan, the evilest immortal of all immortals, will kill someone on holy ground. It's just that traditional and sacred of a rule. You just don't violate it. It also completely undermines another plot point later on in the film, because Jacob Kell's like, well, I don't care about the game. I don't care about the rules. And yet, Connor and Duncan refuse to fight him more than one-on-one. I'm sorry, Duncan wants to fight him two-on-one, but Connor's like, no, it's just one-on-one. We gotta follow the rules. Despite the fact my opponent attacks people with a posse, and doesn't fight fair by sending in 5 other people to weaken his opponent first, then beheads them when they can't fight back. You can't take him on, using 2 people. That's just not fair. If he doesn't care about honor or the rules or anything, why do you care about them in this case? If he's going to go rogue, you think a bunch of other immortals would all agree, if he's not going to follow our rules, we're going to team up and take him out. We may not all like each other or get along, but we cannot abide by someone just running around running right over all the rules we've established for this game of ours. He's got to be eliminated. Even if it requires, 10 of us to team up together. You think there'd be something in the bylaws for immortality, if someone breaks these rules, we get together our own posse and take all those other guys out for being rule breakers. No, apparently that's not the case. If they're gonna go that route, why not just, use a gun and shoot your opponent first, then behead them while they're, coming back from being dead for a little bit. It just hurts watching this film, trying to figure things out like that. It's just no. And the way it ends with an obvious green screen effect or blue screen effect, whatever, doesn't help either. I just don't know why they bothered with Endgame. They didn't have a good plot to work with, and the whole relationship between Connor and the main villain just doesn't really feel like it matters, because I don't care about Jacob Kell's dead dad. Just no. I would have been happier if they just ripped off and did a Kurgan 3.0 probably, and could have went along with it a bit better, but no. And the fact they kill off Connor McLeod in this one doesn't help either. He's the main character of the first 3 films. You just kill him off by having him commit suicide of all things. Yeah. This film's I just don't know why they made it. Couldn't you just done another film and just made Adrian Paul the main character and not even have Connor in it? He was barely in the TV series as it was. He doesn't look anywhere near like he used to, so he really is starting to show his age. So he shouldn't have really been in this film at all anyway. You didn't need to include him, so don't. Just do a bigger, episode of the TV series with a movie budget and, try and go with a villain that's had some history with Duncan. They've been, waiting for a chance to duke it out, big time, for centuries now. It's like they haven't had that sort of episode before. So it's not like they couldn't have done that with a movie budget and gone into a much longer and deeper history with flashbacks and stuff to explain how all this started and why they're been gunning each other for so long, just missing each other or whatnot. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't have done that with the film. And it would have been probably better, even if it felt like, just a more expensive version of a TV episode, a good one. It still would have been better than, what we got with Highlander Endgame. Highlander Endgame's just a mess. Till next time, then. See ya.
The game isn't over yet. What's the matter? Don't you want to be inside me?